What's going on, guys? In this podcast, I sit down with my friend, my client, Ian Murray, who is an Entrepreneurial Operating Systems implementer, or EOS. Ian and I have a great conversation about what it takes to actually move your business forward, move you out of your comfort zone of just operating and move you into your discomfort zone of growth. We also dig into his journey with respect to spiritual growth. I think it's a really great conversation for any entrepreneur who wants to make their business more efficient and scalable. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Ian Murray. Cool, man. All right. EOS.
Yep.
What the hell is EOS?
How about I kind of give you my lead into EOS, like how I ended up with that. So I've run an insurance agency since the age of 23. Arguably maybe a little bit too young to have started an insurance agency, but we had a lot of outward success. But honestly, on the inside of that, it was, I often say it was in shambles, just because I think it was just patched together. Like it was like duct tape and twine. And I was just running at 100 miles an hour, trying to make everything work. And then, I was trying to get everything implemented into my business in terms of, my vision and like how I wanted to do things. And I had this grandiose idea of trying to do insurance differently than what I had experienced, because I worked in 3 insurance agencies prior to that insurance agency. And I couldn't seem to make it work. Me in front of the client was great. Mm-hmm. Me in doing service with the client was great, but I couldn't seem to translate that. I couldn't get the next person that I hired to be able to do those exact same things. So every business owner just told me, work harder, put more hours in. You got to put your nose to the grindstone. This is the hard time. And so that's what I did. And, I'm doing quotes at 10, 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday. People had my cell phone number at all hours and messaging me, and claims would come in, and it was nuts.
Yeah. Especially in insurance too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I knew that something had to change because I ended up with gastritis. And I was just, this stress load was getting pretty high inside the agency, especially as we were growing. And then we ended up having triplets. And as I'm getting like frustrated at, 3-year-olds or 2-year-olds, I kind of had a breakdown in my kitchen, and I was crying because, I was frustrated at the business and how stressed I was. I wasn't frustrated at my kids, but I kind of barked at them, and I knew that something had to change. And just, I had gone to this thing called Strategic Coach. Mm-hmm. So just a coaching program in Toronto. And I was sitting around this table with all these extremely way more successful business owners than I'll ever be. And this cherry farmer from Northern Michigan, as I was griping about all these issues, said, read the book Traction. So I read that book. The book Traction is written by Gino Wickman. It explains EOS and has the entire system written out in it. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, this is how to run a business 101. Like if you were to teach an entrepreneurship class, this is what they should teach.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is just managing human energy. Mm-hmm. Because you got to get people to buy into a bigger vision. You got to get the right people in the right seats. You got to be tracking the right data. It's all of the stuff. And I was like, this is it. So I tried to self-implement, and I fell flat on my face 3 times trying to self-implement. And then I hired an EOS implementer, and the thing just took off. And it was from that, just my passion around it and how much it changed our business and how much it made things simpler. I just knew, man, I love this.
Right. And so what is like...
Yeah, so now what is EOS?
What is EOS? But I get it. So it's essentially a way to run your business more efficiently is what I took from what you just said there. Right. And so what is, like, give me an example of like what a process, and if you, because now you've become an EOS implementer yourself because you're so like bought into the system. Right? Yeah. So like what is it you would do for, let's just use me as an example, like Lingo Vita, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I have 15 employees, and I've done a pretty good job of like delegating a lot of responsibility. I don't feel like I'm really that involved, but like, what is it that you would come in and do for that business?
So, I mean, you could probably speak to this. Every single business owner is like wrestling and struggling with like 136 issues simultaneously inside their head, right? So the difference between the absolute best companies in the world and the average company. So this is a discovery that Gino Wickman made when he was trying to find a solution to his family business. He realized that like 5% of the entrepreneurial companies out there are truly great, really just 1 in 20. But they're all wrestling, every single business wrestling and struggling with like these 136 issues. The difference between the two companies is the best companies in the world, the truly great ones, they solve those 136 issues and they move on every week, every month, and every quarter and solve a new set of 136 issues.
Okay.
The issue with the average entrepreneur is that they solve the same 136 issues again and again. And it's in like the worst case of business deja vu you could ever go through. So what he realized is that the best companies were really great at just 6 things. So those 6 things is number one, they have a really great vision.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is they have an ability to create a vision and a plan to understand what it's going to take to get to that vision.
Yeah.
And then they get everybody in the team 100% bought in to actually achieving that vision. They want to be a part of it and they're there to do it.
Okay.
And the problem is with a lot of small business owners is they think that their business is like a stepping stone to something bigger.
Sure.
And it's because they haven't created this huge vision, this thing that people want to buy into or want to be part of and see themselves growing with.
Yeah.
Now, the second part is that you need great people in order to achieve a great vision.
Sure.
But honestly, the difference with the Dave is that, or I guess the issue with that is that when I was in my business, and you can probably attest this as well, what makes a great person? So what happens is oftentimes you wake up at like 2 a.m. and you're like, man, I don't know if Steve's a good employee. And you're like, he does a pretty good job, but like there's something about Steve that I just don't like.
Right.
So what we do is we try to add better context to that. So we call it right people, right seat. So we're ensuring you get right people who fit your culture and they're in the right seat. And what we mean by right seat is they're great at the roles of their job. This allows you to delineate, do you have a right person issue or is it a right seat issue? Because yet sometimes you got people you just love, but they're not executing in the job.
Right. Yeah.
But the worst problem, honestly, is the people who are great at executing in the job, but they actually don't fit your core values. And I had one of those in my office. I've had a couple, and they tear apart your entire organization. And you got to get rid of those. So again, you got a great vision. Now you got right people in the right seat. We've strengthened the vision component. We've strengthened the people component.
Yep.
The next thing we need to do is we need to get your business running on data. Because unfortunately, most business owners, they think about thoughts, feelings, emotions, and egos when they're making decisions.
Yep.
And you hear all the time, oh, I think, and then they try to make a decision off that.
Sure.
We need to get data-driven decision-making. So what happens is as you strengthen the vision component, you get that compelling vision. You got right people in the right seat, or at least you've clearly defined what the heck that is. And we're starting to run the business on actual figures, data points, is that everything becomes crystal clear. And issues and problems and stuff that's going to jump out at you. Well, that's where we're going to start strengthening what we call the issues component.
Okay.
The issues component is just solving the most important issues in your business, knocking them down and making them go away. But you got to make them go away at their root. Because usually what happens is we solve issues because they're just symptoms of an issue or of a real root cause.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. That's why you're solving those 136 issues again and again and again.
Yeah.
So we're just solving symptoms. Oftentimes is the actual root issue is that it's a weakness in one of these 6 key components I'm talking about. It's a weakness in that you don't have a great vision.
Yeah. I love that. So I just want to pause you because I'm thinking about my own stuff here. So like, well, I think one of the symptoms that I have is this, like we jump around. It's like even with the in coaching, like in the coaching model, it's like we've jumped around a lot. Right. And so like that is that definitely is a symptom of not having like a clear vision on
Sure.
exactly where it's going. And so it's like the vision continuously changes. So
Yeah.
the symptom is like, oh, we go after this, we go after this, we try this strategy, we try this strategy. It's like whatever's kind of shiny, we kind of like go after, right? And so then that leads to like just a bunch of like kind of like just half-ass stuff being done. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's why like that vision component. So let's go back up to the top of the model.
Right.
And that vision component, we get everyone clearly aligned around 8 questions.
Okay. Yeah.
So we house those 8 questions on a thing called the Vision Traction Organizer. But one of those questions is, what's your core focus? Your core focus is honestly the why you do what you do and the what you do, what you're really great at. And when you put those things together, that center part where they intersect, that's your sweet spot right there.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
So the reason why we get everyone aligned on that is because you need to stay laser focused at that. Because you're right, you chase shiny things.
Yeah.
It's like back at my insurance agency, I tried to implement a financial planning department into my insurance agency just because it was a passion project of mine.
Yeah.
Well, that killed our insurance agency because we're diverting all of our energy to this thing that really wasn't producing income. So again, we chase shiny things. So you get to that issues component, kind of moving back over there.
Yeah.
You start coming up with these issues. You figure out where's the weakness? Is it a people issue? Have we not clearly defined what a right person, right seat is? Or do we not have a right people in the right seat? Or are we tracking the wrong data points? Or is the data that we are tracking incorrect?
Right.
You got to get to the root of it.
Yep.
Now, the next thing is you got to strengthen what's called the process component.
Okay.
So that's just about getting the most important things in your business done the right way, the best way, every single time.
Yep.
So this creates consistency, creates scalability. It's going to allow you to actually grow your organization and scale it, right?
Yep. Okay.
Now, the difference between how we do process documentation and how a lot of other companies do it is we simplify it because we're trying to just document 20% of the steps that get to 80% of the results.
Yeah.
And we're only trying to document the handful of what we call core processes.
Okay.
So the reason why is because you're an entrepreneurial company. We don't need a 700-page SOP manual.
No.
The other thing that I want to draw your attention to is I talk to a lot of business owners and they're like, hey, Ian, if I can just get my processes down, we're golden. Listen, you can get all of your processes, your core processes documented. But if you don't have a clear and compelling vision that people want to join in with, you don't have right people in the right seat, and you don't have the right data that's actually tracking to make sure those processes are being done correctly, and you're not knocking down the issues that are coming up on a weekly basis that are inhibiting your processes from moving forward, who cares if you have them documented?
Yeah. Right.
It takes all of these 6 key components to lock everything in. Then the last one, honestly, is just your traction component. So it's just taking the vision down to the ground level, execute on it day in and day out inside the organization. The issue tends to be, and maybe you can attest this as well, in like December, that's my favorite time of the year because I make a business plan for next year.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And my tail would wag like crazy and I'd like have them done up really nice. We'd go out and we'd have this like big state of the company where we'd introduce like, well, this is the plan for next year. And we'd walk around for the next week kind of with our chests puffed up going, we got a plan now.
Yeah. Right.
And then like a week or 2 after that, I'd have it on my desk and then transfer maybe like a couple months down the road, there'd be stuff on top of it. And maybe like a few more months after that, I'd have to clean my desk up because it's a disaster. I'd take the plan, I'd throw it into the credenza or, somewhere else in my office. And then we'd roll back around to December and I'd go, oh, it's business planning time again. And I'd run back over and I'd grab that business plan and go, blow all the dust off it, crack it open and go, what did we do? Oh yeah, we didn't do that. Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot that we were going to do that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day is that you never realize your vision as an entrepreneur. And it's because of a weakness in your traction component. So what we do is we create a thing called rocks, which are just 90-day business priorities, which help you align to actually achieving your vision.
Yeah.
And the second thing is we institute what's called a meeting pulse. But the most important part about the meeting pulse is just this weekly, what we call a level 10 meeting agenda.
Okay.
Because honestly, I'm sure everyone kind of thinks meetings are like the place where you go to get things not done.
Yes.
We make a meeting agenda where we go to get things actually done.
Okay.
this instills traction inside of your organization because part of that meeting agenda, we're checking in on a scorecard, which is the most important data that we're tracking every week. It's checking in on rocks, those 90-day business priorities, making sure whether they're on track or off track. And then we're what we call IDSing, so identifying, discussing, and solving the most important issues in your business every single week. And that's why we have traction inside of a business when you've implemented EOS. And the whole goal is just to strengthen each one of those 6 key components, man.
Right. Yeah. And so like when I'm listening to it, it kind of to me feels like, oh boy, it seems like a lot of extra work, but I'm guessing that it's probably not. It's probably once you kind of get those 6 core ingredients down, then it's just making sure that it reminds me of like what I did intuitively back in the day at Treehouses. And this is actually how I plan my life out. It's like I have like my life goal, like the things I want out of life. And then I break that down into my yearly goals, into my monthly goals, weekly goals, daily goals. Amazing. And then I just make sure that I keep moving forward. But it does happen a lot of times where, I'm recognizing that same life goal has been there for years, over and over and over again. And sometimes I knock some off. Yeah. Actually, I was working with a coach and I just did this thing where we recorded like a year in the future. You say, hey, like record a year in the future, right? And so then you rewatch it and the year was just up. And there was about 12 items that I talked about on that video. And I think like 6 of them kind of like came true.
It's amazing.
Which I'm like, oh, hey, that's pretty good, right? But I did notice the repetition of a few of them that are like the sticky points, right?
Sure.
And so anyways, what I used to do back in the day at Treehouse would be like, okay, what do we need to do this month in order to move us towards our overall goal of increased sales? And then I would just put a list on the wall and then we would just cross it off. It was very like rudimentary, right?
Yeah.
But I'm guessing though, and you can correct me if I'm wrong though, that EOS eventually, once you understand it, the system is similar to that, but just with more data tracking and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So we always say it's simple, it's not easy.
Yeah. Okay.
So at the end of the day, it's the old adage, you can choose which hard do you want to choose. Is that you can continue on in your business life, and whether you're frustrated about not achieving things or you have people issues inside of your business, and you can stay in that hard. Mm-hmm. Or you can make a short-term sacrifice in terms of implementing this system. And yeah, it is hard at the beginning. It's simple, not easy. You got to get that traction down. You got to get that process involved in the business. But once it's implemented, it runs like a machine. Right. And it's great because there's consistency in the business, but people can see what's coming up and they have a track to run on.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I mean, you're big on energy, right?
Yeah.
So this is all managing human energy. Because if you can get everybody in your business bought into a vision and you see the exact same thing in their mind's eye, when everybody's working towards that thing, what happens to the chance of achieving it?
Yeah, definitely increase for sure. What do you do about the like shifting visions though? Because like, for example, like here's a perfect example. It's like, I was opened up Lunga Vita, all my energy was there, building the place. And then, we got it to a certain spot and then I'm out of necessity, I'm like, oh, I got to relaunch coaching, right? And so I basically opened the door to coaching again. So then I took on all these coaching clients, but now I'm recognizing, hey, I got to have all my focus over there at Lunga Vita. Like that's where I need to be 100% focused. So now the vision has changed with respect to coaching. Before it was like, hey, the content I'm producing needs to be speaking to a specific avatar, so that I'm attracting new clients, right? But then now it's like, I still want to do this content piece, right? I still want to, but the vision isn't really to attract, more. So like, it's like there's shifting visions, like new things happen out of Lunga Vita. It's like, we had this vision of like, hey, we're going to put a restaurant out there and we're going to have a patio that overlooks the cliff. But then we recognize like, actually this would be better like as like a spa, this whole area in the front instead of the restaurant. And so the overall vision is not changing. These are like minor changes within the vision. Yeah. But what do you do? I guess what I'm asking, because my problem is shifting vision. Yeah. Like it's like, and it's sure is it about chasing the best idea? Yes, in some ways, but it's also about like new information coming in and going, oh, we need to shift into this direction. Sure. Right? But that is also frustrating for like staff and stuff, right? Like
100%.
Maya that works for me, who would love EOS because she's like a very like like a very like attention to detail type of person, where I'm not. I'm like a very like emotionally emotional person. Not even, I wouldn't want to say emotional, but I'm more intuitive. Like I just do everything intuitively. I'm not a big planner. I kind of build the plane, we'll fly it kind of person. Right?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And so now the problem with that is that sometimes it gets you into trouble. Like for example, at Lungo Vita, we built these pool areas and I put fences around the pool, and I recognize like, oh shit, if this is going to be a spa area, we can't have the fences the way they are. Now we have to take the fences down and put new fences up. Right. And so that costs money. And then the staff, the problem I have out there, like the higher management staff, they get confused around what the vision is.
For sure.
Right. And
it's called organizational whiplash.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So there's two different parts to this. So, I mean, obviously every company is different. So let's start there. The root cause of the issue you're talking about could be a different route for you than it is for a different business. Number one is, we talked about that vision component. We talked about there was 8 questions. Talked about that there was one question called, what's your core focus?
Yeah.
What do you love to do and what are you great at? And that intersecting point, staying laser focused there, that now needs to become the lens that you're looking at all of your business decisions through.
Gotcha.
Because that shouldn't really be changing. Your core focus.
Yes, right.
Right?
Yes.
So that's your lens now to make sure whether this is a good idea or whether this is a shiny thing.
Sure.
The second thing is that in our world, we call it a visionary and an integrator.
Mm-hmm.
So and this is going to be the same in every business, but it's just called different things in different places. Yeah. But at the end of the day, there's a visionary and there's an integrator. They are diametrically different. An integrator is a person who holds a leadership team accountable. Mm-hmm. They are the glue that holds people together. They ensure the leadership team is working together as a cohesive group to achieve the vision.
Yep.
Now, the visionary, on their hand, is a big ideas person.
Yep.
They usually are the founder. They have a million new ideas. They're great at big strategic relationships. They're great at the long-term vision, strategic planning.
Yep.
But they do not love getting down into the weeds.
Right.
They don't love tough conversations. Mm-hmm. That's the better work done by the integrator. We believe that in order to have the best business, it takes 2 people to run a company. You need a person who is able to be creative and to set those big goals and to find the new strategic direction and to like come up with these brand new ideas. And then you have to have someone who filters that stuff.
Yeah.
And is there to execute. And that filter allows your team to not experience organizational whiplash. They protect the team from you.
Yeah.
which is what my integrator does for me.
Right.
Is I talk about these great, big, huge ideas and how we need to change everything. That was always the hilarious thing. As soon as Ian goes to a conference, he's going to come back and say, we got to change everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen now because my integrator, who's also my wife, Kara, she holds that leadership team accountable and makes sure that we're not veering off course and just chasing shiny things.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I recognize that, like, I think one of my big issues throughout business has been like this shifting focus, It's kind of like, I'm like, because the work that I do, I'm at this place where I believe I can have whatever I want. Right. And so it's like, if I set my focus on it, then it's going to come to me with 100% certainty. It's like, I've just seen it over and over again throughout the course of my life. And it's through hindsight, like being able to look back and go, I wanted to be in great shape. Check. I wanted to, you do an MMA fight. I wanted to build a successful business.
I didn't know you did an MMA fight.
Yeah, I did a little bit of it back in the day. Yeah. But I was kind of like the goal with, and this is another thing that I suffer from, was like, I'm very much like, and once I hit that goal, now the desire for that thing immediately goes away. Like,
right.
And so, which is like such an interesting concept. And then you can see why people self-sabotage in some ways, because we unconsciously know that when we achieve the thing that we want to achieve, we are going to like immediately the need for that thing is going to go away.
Right. Well, because we become arsonists in our own company.
Yeah.
Which, again, when you have that really great relationship between a visionary and an integrator, it prevents the visionary from becoming an arsonist.
Yeah.
Because they're allowed to stay in their sweet spot. A visionary sweet spot isn't holding a team accountable. It's not It's not making sure that all of the stuff's done and making sure all the checks and balances. It's also not looking at, hey, I want to put pools here because that would be really, really great. It's not getting into the details of like where those fence lines would be and what the view would be and things like that. That's not where a visionary sweet spot is. And the problem is we only have so much energy, right?
Yeah.
And if myself as a visionary, if I'm forced into the integrator seat, I'm not doing what I'm great at.
Right.
And I blow through my energy so fast.
Sounds like the visionary's got the easier job.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I will always tell you it's the best job, but a person who's an integrator loves being an integrator.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They love seeing things all the way through to the end. It annoys them to get 20% of the way and then just start on to something new.
Yeah, right.
Whereas that excites me. I'm 20 to 30% in on a project and I'm like, I'm good.
Right.
I don't need to see this thing to the end. I need to go back to the beginning and start creating something new. That drives an integrator nuts. If you said, hey, integrator, you need to be a visionary and just come up with ideas and you don't have to fully execute them.
Yeah.
That would be their personal nightmare.
Right. Yeah. It's just funny because I'm just reflecting as you're talking about like my own, because it's funny because I've probably been an integrator my whole life. Like I can just get shit done.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I built Lungo Vita essentially.
For sure. And most entrepreneurs are because they have a high capacity to get things done.
Yeah.
But it probably blows your energy.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. That's happened at Lungo Vita is like most of my big pushes have been like short, little, maybe 6-month, year pushes. And then something's in place and then I delegate and then move on. Right. But Lungo Vita has been like this 3-year, building process. And it's just been like, it's been a lot of energy, but it's funny because the dynamic that we have is because I have my business partner at Lungo Vita, who's kind of been like my spiritual business mentor, and he is definitely like a visionary, let's say. I've been the integrator for him, but then I'm also the visionary and I have an integrator myself. So it's like, there's like this kind of like tier thing that's happening. And I don't think that's the most efficient way to do it. When him and I were actually out there at Lungo Vita, like kind of running it together. I was supposed to be the CEO and he was just supposed to be there. And then it was like, he kept on giving me idea after idea after idea. And I'm trying to build the place. And it was like, that's what it was. It was like arson. And then we basically had this moment where I'm like, listen, either you have to run this or I have to run it. But it can't be both of us.
Right. Because when two people are accountable, nobody's accountable.
That's it. Right. And so then, when he decided to go and do something off in Sedona, and that's when like Lungo Vita like really started coming together quickly because we stopped getting paused every time we had to listen to the visionary. Yeah. Right. And so I definitely think that there is a balancing that visionary implementer is probably like one of the most challenging things to kind of do.
It is because they have to stay on the same page. Right.
Yeah.
So when in EOS, we implement these things called same page meetings between the visionary and the integrator. Because at the end of the day, those two need to be 100% on the same page with where the vision of the organization is going. And they also need to make sure that they're not stepping on each other's toes. There's a clarity of roles there. Yeah. And the visionary has to 100% trust the integrator to run that business and to make business decisions. They're going to benefit the business. Mm-hmm. Now, once those two are on the same page, they can come into a leadership team meeting with the rest of the leadership team. And it's like rocket fuel at that point in time. Right. And because everyone is aligned to that leadership team. And then as the leadership team goes, so does the rest of the organization.
Yeah. Like that, I feel that completely. And I think that's like so important. And I also am like big on like, I hate meetings. Like I tell Maya all the time, like these meetings are fucking useless. Like we're not getting anything done in these meetings. It's just like, we'll have 2-hour meetings and we walk away with like one decision being made. Right. Thing. And I'm like, what do we just meet for? Like this could have all been solved through text messages. Yeah. And so, that would definitely be, something I'd be interested in is like how to make these meetings like more efficient. And maybe you could just talk on that like quickly. Cause I think a lot of business owners struggle with like the useless meeting syndrome.
So let's talk about that. So a weekly level 10 meeting, we call it a level 10 because we're trying to get to a 10 out of 10 in terms of how effective that meeting was. Okay. So first off is the beginning part of the meeting. They're 90 minutes long. Okay. You got to transition to that meeting. So everyone goes around and gives a piece of personal good news and business good news. Okay. That just allows us to get out of our current mindset, transition nicely into a meeting, get everyone on the same page. Allows us to be human, right?
Yeah, right.
And the next thing is we're going to check in on the most important items in the business. So we have a scorecard, making sure that those weekly numbers are doing what they need to do, checking in on those rocks, those most important things that we said need to be completed over the next 90 days, checking in on customer and employee headlines, making sure that, hey, is everything going well with both those groups? And then we inject accountability directly into the meeting agenda with a to-do review. So there's obviously a meeting last week, and you had to-dos that came into the meeting. We need to make sure those to-dos got to done this week. Right? Because oftentimes we leave a meeting and then we never meet again, or we meet like 2-3 weeks down the road. I'm like, did you do that stuff? Or we just completely forget that somebody had a to-do to go do.
Yeah.
Right? So we make sure they're done every single week. Then we spend 60 out of that 90 minutes, what we call IDSing. So IDSing is called the issue solving track.
Okay.
So you guys, number one, you got to get really great at adding issues to an issues list. Then we need to prioritize them. What are the 3 most important issues we have to solve this week? And then we have to IDS it. So IDS stands for identify, discuss, solve. So you need to identify what is the root cause of the issue. And then you need to discuss how you're going to solve it. Now, unfortunately, what happens is most teams spend all their time discussing.
Right.
They never get to the root cause of the issue.
Yeah.
They never agree on a plan of attack to make it go away forever. And they never actually solve anything at all. Kind of exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah.
So again, quickly identify what is the root cause. That should be the bulk majority of your time. And this doesn't look like this. So Sally did such and such. Oh yeah. And then I saw Sally last week. Oh, but did you see what Sally did 2 weeks ago? I walked. That's not discussing the root cause of the issue.
Right.
We are just sitting there and we are venting and we're gossiping.
Right. Yep.
We need to discuss, okay, Sally did this. What's the root cause of that issue? Are our processes off? Is it a right people, right seat issue? Is our vision not currently aligned? Let's figure out where the root cause of the issue is. And then we need to discuss how are we going to solve it.
Right.
Once around the table, no repeating yourselves. If you are repeating yourself, you are politicking.
Right.
Which means you are trying to say your idea in multiple different ways to get people to buy in.
Yeah.
If we all can't agree on a plan of attack to make it go away, integrator has the call, makes the call on it, and then we move to solve. Solve is taking a to-do to make the issue go away.
Gotcha.
Once you're done, knock that issue off, move on to issue number 2, repeat the process.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it seems very, very simple, and I'm sure it takes some time to kind of like get used to that system and get out of that.
For sure.
Just
you have to be, somebody's got to facilitate that meeting really well.
Yeah, right. And do you feel like as I'm like, I love like all the idea of, what does EOS stand for anyways?
The Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Entrepreneurial Operating System. Yeah, right. So I feel like it's like everything that comes from it would be like amazing. And like even that meeting thing right there, I'm like, oh, our team would benefit so much from that. But like in some ways, as like, let's call it like the visionary and like the steaming, like implementation, all of that.
Yeah.
Seems like daunting to me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Right. So would you say that the implementer is like more of the person who takes on the EOS implementation, or like for example, if I was gonna sign with you, was like, would you meet with me or would you meet with Maya?
So I meet with the leadership team.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I work with the leadership team because the leadership team has to get on the same page.
Sure.
And they have to execute this.
Yeah.
And yes, it can seem daunting. And coming from a guy who's a visionary and coming from a guy who tried to self-implement 3 times and fell flat on my face.
Yeah.
It's not easy at the beginning. Right. Simple, not easy. But again, you have to choose which hard you're going to go through, because on the other side of this is a much better life. It's kind of like the work that you and I have done together.
Yeah.
Right. In that I can continue down the road that I'm currently on and endure the pain that I'm currently in, or I can endure a short-term pain that may be pretty painful at that period of time, but I'm going to be released from it later on down the road.
100%. Yeah.
If I can get visionaries to be visionaries, to love their life every single day and not be drained by the business, and to be doing what they're absolutely great at in the business, and have integrators doing what they love to do and have a great system that they can run an entire business on. Now you have a great culture.
Yeah.
And you have people doing what they love to do in the business.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I mean, like I think I've mentioned to you before, it's like out there at Lunga Vita, it's like the culture just naturally kind of it came about. I think it's probably
as they always do.
Yeah. Like, but I think as a result, like people always say like, you have such good people and we get so many compliments on our staff out there. And I think it's a result of just, I'm not taking credit for this because that's what it sounds like when I say this, but it's like, because I've set the intention to like, operate from a place of integrity and courage, I'll attract people that are also aligned with those principles.
Absolutely.
And then that kind of just trickles down from the top up. And so that's why we're getting that. But I think there's like a nice merger, like even in my coaching, I was like, there probably would be like a great like merger of like EOS and like the intuitive work that I do essentially, where it's like, hey, Ian, like last week we talked about these things. Let's check in and see, if any of this stuff popped up and what you can do with it kind of thing. So yeah, like I definitely believe that having better systems is really hugely important. And it sounds like EOS doesn't take away from that intuitive vision either, right? Because that's what, like sometimes people think, for example, like scheduling, people are like very against like scheduling, because they think they're going to lose their freedom, but the reverse actually happens. If you put in the small amount of work with scheduling, then you actually gain freedom because you know what you're doing. Your time off is actually time off, and you're not just constantly thinking about all this stuff because like, hey, I got it all planned out, so, and that's actually something that you put into your personal life as well. Like you have an assistant, like I'm always messaging your assistant and stuff. And you seem to have your time like pretty organized. Now, is that something that you've always been, or is that a result of learning EOS as well? And like being, I can put this into my personal life or my, I guess you would probably call it business life, but
yeah, I mean, aside from just the stuff we talked about, there's about 20 different tools in the toolbox. One of which is a thing called Delegate and Elevate.
Okay.
And again, I'm just trying to free up my time so that way I'm operating in kind of the upper left-hand quadrant. So in Delegate and Elevate, you're dividing a sheet of paper into 4 quadrants. Yeah. And the top left hand is the stuff you love to do and you're great at. And the bottom right hand is the stuff you hate to do and you're not good at. And then kind of moving to the left, it's you like to, or you don't really like to do it, but you're good at it. The hilarious part is that's where the bulk majority of the population spends their time.
Yeah.
Things they don't like to do, but they're good at.
Yeah.
So my goal has always been to try to eliminate those bottom 2 quadrants, free up my time and energy. And scheduling is something that just irks me. I hate scheduling. So Fernanda just does a phenomenal job at placing my schedule. And she's also more mindful of my time than I would be. I'm a natural people pleaser. Right. So like I would shove, if there's like a 20-minute time slot, I'm in. Let's do it. Let's get this thing in there because it's going to make that person feel good.
Yeah, right.
And I know that about myself. Mm-hmm. And she's more protective of my time than I am.
Yeah, but we're working on getting out of the people, because I was a people pleaser for so long, and it still slips out every now and then. But I'm definitely more. I'm definitely become better at like catching it. It's like I just kind of did, like the other day. I'm like, I was playing golf and some guy said, "Oh, I'll see you Sunday," and I said, "Yeah," and it was like just immediate response, "Yeah, I'll see you Sunday," but I was gone on Sunday, because I was going to Jamaica there.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, why did I just say yes there? Like I knew the answer was no. It wasn't. Right. It wasn't a reaction like, "Yeah, I'll see you Tuesday." Like I knew the answer was no, but it was just like. It was a people pleasing, that unconscious mechanism. So it showed me that there's still a little bit of me that's in it.
Some you're hanging on to.
Yeah. And so it's like, oh, okay. But this is where this work is continuous. And I'm sure it's the same thing with EOS.
It is, because our goal again is to try to get people to 80% stronger or better in each of the 6 key components. And what you tend to find is that as you strengthen another, like one of the key components, there's kind of something else that shines a light onto another one of the key components. Yeah. You're like, ooh, there's actually a bit more work to do over there. That's why we call it a journey. Mm. There's no destination with EOS. It's a journey. It's a journey to get your business into a better place, week after week, quarter after quarter, year after year.
Yeah, I love it. Sounds great. And so now you're doing this, like you're implementing this with other businesses.
Which is such a cool thing, because now I'm looking back on my own business as an implementer. Because as you know, as you teach the stuff, you become so much better at the stuff. Like you understand it in a different way.
100%.
So I've been able to really shine the light on my own business a lot more, which has been really neat.
Yeah. Let me ask you this too, because I'm kind of backtracking here, but you talked about those 4 quadrants, and you talked about, because this is actually something I've been tuning into a lot lately. You talked about people get stuck in the, I'm good at it, but I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
Right. Let me just, from the work that we've done together, and like, what do you think your analysis is of why people stay there?
That's interesting. Yeah. I think number one is there almost is an obligation to stay there. There's like a societal thing to struggle.
Yeah.
Where people just don't feel like it's okay to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Gino Wickman wrote another really good book called Shine. In the back half of Shine, honestly, it's taken from all the stuff that we've talked about.
Doesn't he have the map of consciousness?
He does,
in that direction, yeah.
And he references it a number of times. Actually, I saw Gino last week in Detroit, and I was talking to him about his work with Shine, and he was talking about that book, Letting Go, is his number one book. He's like, that I love that book. Huh. And he's like, that's what got me down my spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Along with actually every book that you've recommended, he recommended to me that day. So that was a really cool thing.
Nice.
But I think people just struggle to allow themselves to feel successful.
Yeah. I literally, like, this is a big, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think one of the things I've been picking up on is that we want to remain in the struggle because that's how we feel worthy of the success we're getting. Like I have a client right now, a friend of ours, and he's making like way more money than he's ever made. He's killing it. And then he immediately like took on like all of these other tasks. Like he's taking all these courses and everything. And we came to this realization. It was like, you're trying to increase the amount of effort that you're putting out to try and match this new level of income that you're putting in because there's like a feeling of not being worthy or whatever. And it's like, it's almost like, and I remember having this experience too. It's like when I had Treehouse running, just firing on all cylinders. I had a great manager running the place. And it was like, I was just making like so much money and it was just flowing in. I wasn't doing anything. Right. And I had this one moment that I was like, I was at the boatyard and this guy is there as a doctor, and I was always there fixing my boat and talking to all the boaters and whatever. And the doctor sees me there all the time. Like every time he pulled into the boatyard, I was there. And he came up to me one day. He's like, "Don't you ever work?" And it was like from this place of like envy, right? Because I had what he didn't have as a doctor, right? He had to punch in and go to the ER and do, but that moment, because I wasn't aware of it at the time, it like triggered me, right? It was like, oh, I'm not working hard enough. Like I'm not like a doctor thinks that like I'm not working hard enough essentially. Right. And so I think what happens is that people get stuck in that quadrant of they're doing what they don't really love to do, but they're good at it. One, because they want to stay in the struggle. Yeah. And they're getting a payoff from staying in that struggle. But the second thing is, and this is the big aha that I've come to recently, is that whatever it is that we want, and you and I have talked about this, whatever it is, and if you're listening to the podcast, just think about whatever it is you want out of life. Like some people say freedom, some people say money, some people say love. You are actually uncomfortable there.
Yeah, you did this with me like 2 weeks ago. Right. We talked about this. Like, what do you want? I said, calm. And like, you know what I love about you is how blunt you are. And I hope I can say this in like the most loving way I possibly can. It was like, you almost looked at me and were like, bullshit. Like you don't want calm. Yeah. That's the thing you're terrified of. Yeah. And then as we worked our way back, you're like, oh my gosh, I am. It's the reason why I went and got, 16 designations or whatever it was back when I was doing financial planning. It's that, I don't like that. I have a fear of that calm. Right.
Well, now isn't that, and now see them, but that, and then when we were talking about that 2 weeks ago, it was like, I was like feeling the chills too, because I was like, this is such an aha, because just the awareness that the thing that we want, we are actually uncomfortable in is so huge, because then one of two things, well, a couple of things will happen. One is when calm shows up, instead of running away from it, you can say, hey, this is where I want to be. So let me just embrace this right now. Let me just open the door to it a little bit.
Deserve it.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Yeah. And then there's like a deserving element. But there's and this is something that you and I are working on, is that you're saying consciously that you deserve it. Right. But your actions are showing otherwise, right?
Sure.
So it's because that's why you're uncomfortable in the calm, because you're saying, I deserve it, which is a great rationalization to try and stay there. But then what will happen is the unconscious will continue to run the show and be like, no, you fucking don't deserve it.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just really interesting. And I think circling back to like EOS though, is like, I think what EOS does for businesses and entrepreneurs is it continuously pushes them into that quadrant where they're uncomfortable.
Right. It does.
And so now if you combine EOS and spirituality, which sounds like the guy that created it is into, and that's why I think so much of what he has done is like in alignment with like spiritual growth and levels of consciousness.
And there's so much that's intertwined that I can see in EOS as we're teaching the tools, even the psychology of how we teach the tools.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, wow, you were already on a spiritual path when you were implementing this stuff.
100%. This has been really great. We got to do like a round 2 of this, because it seems like there's so much information. But like, how can people find you though if they're hearing the podcast, they're like, wow, this would be great for my business?
Yeah, I mean, you can search me up online. Send me an email, honestly, at Ian, so ian.murray, MURRAY, at eosworldwide.com. It's probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Yeah.
I'm not on the socials.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of, I have them. They're not on my phone, and I often forget to check them. So I'm just being transparent and open and honest on that. That's but
you have a website though?
Yeah. EOS, so eosworldwide.com/Ian-Murray, or just search up Ian Murray EOS implementer, and I'm sure it'll pop up on Google there.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, man.
Great conversation. And I look forward to like continuing the journey. We'll do another podcast in a year or so.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Talk soon.
Cool.